I basically have three parts I wish to put this into. One is quite shortly, a few things about how you use the radio. Then I want to get onto the terminology, and in particular I want to deal with the whole thing about the concept of a conversation on the radio, meaning that if people are talking, you're supposed to not start talking yourself, because you're likely to either suppress his signal or get lost yourself. And lastly, just one thing that we have not really been good at ever, which is continuously updating people with what you're doing. If people go down, it's kind of a good thing for Hitman to know. So everybody should have both radios. And does anyone not have two radios?
One, two. Yes.
I'm hoping that people know how to set the channels on each one. Basically the knob at the top for both of them.
I don't see anything on the long range radio. I see change channel, but I don't see any numbers on it.
The numbers aren't on the knob.
Oh,
They
okay, I see
appear
it.
in
Never
the...
mind then. I'm stupid.
Yeah, so basically, to make sure everybody knows it, I figured that today we're going to use the long range channel 2.
I see it. I learned today. I'll be quiet.
Also, when you're having two radios, it's quite useful to put one radio on each ear. Is there anyone who needs to hear how that is done?
Me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me.
Basically, it's a matter of selecting the radio you want to put on one ear, then it's Control Shift and left to right.
Oh.
That will put it on
Ah, there
that
we go.
particular ear.
I see it.
So when I speak on the short range or on the long range, those should appear on different ears such that you can hear which radio it came on.
How do I switch between the radios?
Shift, Alt, and Caps Lock.
Now, like, how do I change between long range and short range?
What do you mean, talking?
Yeah.
Basically, if you hit left shift, left alt, and caps lock, in the bottom right it'll say which radio it's switched to. So if it says 148 and you hit caps lock now, it'll say you'll be talking on 148. If you change it to 343 in the bottom right, you'll then be talking on 343. There's also key bindings which you can adjust to have two different buttons to obviously talk on different radios. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I was about to also mention that it is possible to set them up such that you have one button per radio you want to talk on.
How you do that?
It doesn't accept mouse buttons for me, which is a shame.
Yeah. So for that you need then to map the mouse buttons to some keyboard button or combination thereof, and then bind that. But basically, on the escape menu, configure controls, configure add-ons at the bottom, and Acre 2 is probably the first one, already selected. It'll give you all of the... it'll show you all of the key bindings you can set to it, and alternate radio key 1, 2, and 3. can then be used to select and speak on one particular radio.
So long
It seems
range will be first radio.
By default, yeah.
Well,
Alternate.
that
Alt radio
depends.
1 will be your long range and alt radio 2 will be your short range. At least that's what it's doing for me.
Yeah, that
Yeah, if
depends
you
on the items in your inventory.
If you picked up the radios in... if you picked up the long range later, it's going to be the second radio. One way you can remap it is to drop the radio you want to be second onto the ground and then pick it up again. Just leave it there for a couple seconds or so.
I've just realised why.
There's a bunch of different things on the long range radio. There's like channel 11 through 16, FSNet 1 and 2, all that stuff. I don't know which one you want me on.
2, mate. Basically, those are just channel names. So PLT net is platoon net 1, 2, 3, etc. Then you've got company net, koi net, FSN. Just another
Fire
net.
support,
Fire
probably.
support.
Yeah, I say we usually just use the first channel, platoon at 1, and without bothering with the rest. But in the future I expect that we will be having some elements that that are rather talk heavy, like fire support, air support, that will then be having their conversations with the ground troops, directing them on channel 2 in order to free up the channel 1.
Okay.
So it's all you really need to know is that button changes channel. If you need to change channel on it sometime, you will probably be told then. It's the same type of knob that you use on the short range anyway, so it's not a big deal. Anyway, any questions so far? Then we'll move on a bit. Just a moment while I get the little document up with reminders.
Oh, I can't open my mouse software to set a key binding.
Just one of those things which you just sit for like 30 minutes just trying to fix and do it, and it just doesn't work. It's like, you bastards.
Screw it, I'll stick with the key bindings.
I just stick with default, because whenever an update comes out it resets them anyway, and I have to go through all the palaver again. It's like,
My mouse also doesn't use key bindings, but if you set it to a single key, it usually works. If your mouse software supports that.
Oh,
It
I
probably
found out
does,
how
but I
to-
just can't open it.
On the short range radio, I learned how to change the current channel block.
yeah, the short range has got, if you click on the side of it, it's got that detach handle if you haven't seen it before. It's basically, there's however many channels on each block, and it's just on a slightly different frequency, I believe. So you can have any number of people using...
256 channels, that should be plenty.
yeah.
Ooh, it has a cool little animation to go with it.
There was a bug if you did something, I think they fixed it, where it kills you like radio and stuff.
Oh,
But I think they fixed it. I read
Oh.
in a recent patch, I think.
okay.
It seems I've... if I'm gonna find that list, I'm gonna have to search a bit more, and I think I've searched long enough. I'll just take it from memory.
What's all words list?
I was basically looking at the old SOP. It's somewhat out of date, but there's still one section that is still relevant.
Okay, I have also some writing about it. There was the radio check protocol and then some keywords like protocol words like affirmative, negative, roger, and all that stuff.
Yeah, those are basically the ones I was thinking of. If you have the full list, do you want to do the introductions?
Yeah, sure. With the keywords or the radio check procedure?
I would like to just start with the keywords. With each one, I'm thinking we should also just give an example of the situation it's used in, what it means, and kind of just give it a bit of a memory hook.
Okay. So then, basic communications. The concept is somebody initiates a conversation, a communication, and yeah, he calls somebody he wants to talk to. And that's the first important thing. You must know his name, and his name will come first. So if you want to talk with Alpha 1, you would say, Alpha 1, this is, for example, Bravo 2. So the reasoning behind that is everybody is listening on the long-range net, and everybody is trying to phase out the stuff that's going on the long-range net. And if you hear your name, you're gonna listen in. So the first thing is you hear your name, and then you hear who's calling. So that gives you the attention, or that brings your attention up to the communication that's currently initiated towards you. So if you hear Alpha 1, this is Alpha 2, message over, then you know Alpha 2 is calling you and he has a message for you.
As opposed to blah 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 Alpha 1, where
Exactly.
you haven't paid attention to who was calling you. So always start with the name or the call sign of whoever you are talking to.
Exactly. So again, on the communication layout, you initiate a communication with calling somebody, and a communication consists of several separate transmissions. And a transmission is the call, the answer, the call, the answer, and then sometime later the whole communication is finished. So Alpha 1, this is Alpha 2, message over would be the first transmission in a communication, and the end of a transmission is terminated with over. So then somebody would answer, Alpha 2, this is Alpha 1, send your message over. Then Alpha 2 knows, okay, the transmission is over. It's over. The keyword over was there. Then he can answer, Alpha 1, this is Alpha 2, how's the weather there? Over. Then Alpha 1 again says, Alpha 2, Alpha 1, weather is fine, over.
One correction here.
Yeah.
You basically start the conversation as in Alpha Hitman message over. The next thing you do is you wait for that reply. You say that over signals that you are done with what you want to say. At that point Alpha will reply, and that confirms that you have Alpha and that Alpha is actually listening, that you won't be occupying the radio for without the recipient being around to listen to it.
Yeah, then you can skip the Alpha Bravo stuff.
Yeah, but I want to also point out, this is the thing I was talking about. At that point you have a conversation going on, you and that other person. And basically you want to keep that conversation short, and when you're done, the ending out comes in. That basically means that at this point we are done. Whoever else needs to use the radio, go ahead.
Usually the person who the site that initiates the contact ends the contact or the conversation. That's usually the case. There's also some border cases. Normally communications also fade out if the overword is not used and the channel is open for a minute or something, then everybody should be clear that the conversation is over but has not probably properly been ended. So I think that's good for the actual concept, going forth and back, starting and ending a conversation. Everything clear about that?
Just a
Yes.
comment.
Yeah.
It's actually really important with the end of the conversation, because when we're on the radio, if I'm on the other side of the hill, I might only hear one side of the conversation, which means if I don't hear the end, I can't be sure that the conversation is actually ended, because you might be talking on the other side of the hill still, and then I would be jamming your conversation.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, but the radio protocol does not extend to I'm about to end this and then let's end this, unfortunately. So that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, that would also would only solve the issue if you can only hear the initiator. But if you can only hear the guy who's answering, that would still be a problem. But yeah, either way, good point. We should try to make or to end the conversations without, and at least with over. Okay, then a few keywords we use to get everybody on the same page. That's called radio protocol. Saying yes and no is sometimes a little bit hard to understand over radio, so we usually use affirmative or negative for affirming something. We use Roger or copy. That means, yeah, I have copied your message, I have received it, I was able to read it and was able to process it.
But in particular, it does not in itself imply that you actually will do whatever you were told to do. It means that if you say copy, you heard what he said, but you haven't yet committed to it.
Yeah, if you receive an order to go somewhere, but you have casualties, you would still say, copy your orders, I have received that, but not saying I'm going there initially with saying copy.
We're going to use Wilco then.
That's one, Wilco is one of the words you can use to say that you received it and you're about to do it.
Yeah. Usually, in our case, we would usually give the sending party a reason why we are not doing it. I think it's mostly in our world, the fast gaming virtual world. Yeah, it's expected for us to react immediately on orders, and if you can't, you have to give a reason.
90% of the time that reason will be because someone's incapacitated.
Yeah.
It's not like in reality where you might kind of decide I don't want to cross that field, so we don't really care. It's, after all, a game.
Well, I am hoping that we'll get a bit more of that rather than wandering straight into machine gun killing fields.
Yeah, but the number of reasons for us to not comply is smaller.
Yeah. And one case for where you would use copy instead is if we are set up on different hills and the leader is giving the orders for what we are going to do once we start moving, but we don't want to move quite yet. But at that point, copy is the appropriate word to reply with.
Yep, exactly. Okay, some more. If somebody initiates a conversation and he asks Alpha 1, this is Alpha 2, message over, then the other side would say, Alpha 2, this is Alpha 1, go ahead, or Alpha 2, this is Alpha 1, send it. So send your message or go ahead with your message so that the other side knows you can begin talking. If you haven't understood something over the radio because somebody talked into your ears or the MG gunner was happy lowering his ammo count, you would say, Alpha 2, this is Alpha 1, say again. You would not use repeat.
What,
Repeat
you want more
is
shells on that position?
exactly. Repeat is signal for repeat the last thing you have done, and that's usually used for artillery to shell some more. So you would
You
say,
could-
say again.
In theory, you could say, as in, you order Alpha to move up 200 meters, and when they report they reached it, you could say repeat to say move further up. That's also one valid use of repeat, but it's we'd usually just go with the full sentence.
So the say again is the thing we use. Then we have sometimes the case where we don't have time to listen into communications because
Oh,
there's a little
sorry,
bit
that was
of...
mispress.
Okay, so we were at the thing where you don't have time to listen into communications. You would say then Alpha 2 this Alpha 1 stand by, or Alpha 2 this Alpha 1 wait 1, that would be wait a minute, to delay the communication to signal that you don't have currently time to receive a message. So the initiator would then know, okay, I have to wait a little bit.
Hitman Alpha, wait 1 out. At that
Exactly.
point, you want to say out in order because you're not in the conversation. If it's kind of 10-15 seconds until you'll be ready, then you could say over and as in wait 1 over, and when you are actually no, scratch that.
Usually on the radio, if someone's busy, they'll usually give a reason. As bullets tend, if say you're next to an AR or something, you're in a pretty heavy firefight. If something's cracking off, then you usually just say back to whoever hitman is, I'm kind of busy, whatever, and then over.
Yeah, the short version of that is simply wait 1 or just say busy over, no, busy out.
Yeah, the thing is, you don't usually want to end communication if you're getting comms from a superior. So he might have a reason to still want you to receive that and to prioritize the message over everything you do, except from perhaps fetching bullets and dying. But so, yeah. Wait 1 over and Roger out could be the end of that conversation to delay a conversation a little bit. Okay, then we have the case where we give orders and we want to make sure that they were received, and we want at least a partial readback of these orders. Then the command or the protocol words you would use is how copy. Then the other side would answer good copy, Alpha 1's gonna move to position A. So over. And then the other side would, no, the communication was received, understood, and the likelihood that Alpha 1 is going to move to the right location is quite big.
I'm also hearing a lot of cases of people saying how copy without actually asking for and wanting that readback. So you ask for how copy only when you really need to be sure that you got instructions as you intended them.
Yep. And to make it short, if you received a long order and you repeat solid copy, then perhaps usually that means you have had time to fully process it, and it signals that there's no readback procedure necessary.
One question. What would be the case of, well, getting the detailed information? Yeah, well, when does a commander or leader or whatever need the exact detailed information about the other guy?
The readback?
Yeah. Also,
Yeah, if it's really necessary for everyone to be on the same page, or if the orders accept,
One
think about
case,
a minefield, and there is only one path through it that has been cleared, and the commander gives an order: move along that road in the middle. How copy? And if he would say, move along any road, I'm gonna move through this field, he would say, no, you're gonna be dead. So he wants the affirmative result that you have received and understood the information correctly.
another case that you would want to use how copy is if your order is somewhat long and you want to make sure he got the whole of it. Then you would also ask for a readback.
Yeah. Sometimes in the planning phases, the commander would issue a long order with tactical information, with its intents, with its plans, and the how copy would signalize for the receiver, I have understood it, and then he would just summarize the orders. Okay, we are on push through, we're going to move waypoint A, waypoint B, and waypoint C, for a message that was about 2 minutes long, so it would be a quick readback.
okay, thanks.
It's not that you have to repeat every word like it has been said in the original message.
I know, that's obvious. Yes.
So then we have one more thing, that urgent messages, that's breaking the communication, and that's the call sign break. So there is currently a communication ongoing between two elements, and somebody has to say something very, very important. The thing to do is you would wait for an over and then say break into that communication. That would signal to everybody that somebody has something to say very importantly, and that the answerer that was receiving the last transmission after the over, he would want to answer, but he would then stand back and stand down to wait for the break sayer to make his urgent message. Sometimes you have to do it once or twice, but the air should be still then for a few seconds, and then the urgent communication can come through.
The basic idea is that if say Hitman is giving Alpha an order on where they will be moving next, and suddenly Bravo sees a tank rolling over a hill towards us, basically by normal protocol, Bravo should not be speaking on the radio until Hitman and Alpha are done. But this is an urgent thing, so it needs to be reported ASAP. That means break, stop talking, I have something important to say.
But you must wait until the guys have said over.
The problem is, you could key up the radio and say break while the transmission is going on, but your transmission would easily get lost, as in neither party would hear it, other than a bit of crackling in the signal.
I think there's a little beeping as well, which goes on when two people are trying to talk at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can't be sure.
Dolph,
Yep.
key up your radio for a bit.
Long range. On.
Yeah, I'm keying and I'm talking. All
Can
the
you
stuff
guys
is
hear
going
both
on.
how the signals are
Yeah, we
overlapping?
think we would need to go further away because they can hear us on direct talk also. That's a little confusing.
I can't hear Dolph on the radio.
I can hear Dolph. Switch to channel 2 long range.
Hello,
Hit your
hello,
second
hello.
light.
Long range protocol.
Oh no, I can hear.
Should have prisoner.
I love my radio. I love
Rouge, are
it
you
so.
keying the radio?
I love
Yeah.
it,
Yeah, you can hear it's making that little chunky sound.
Yeah.
Crackling noises make me laugh. These
So, if
grenades
are
make
you
me
trying to
run.
talk, Rouge? Or you just...
I'm
doing
just...
me?
All I'm trying to do is make such that that sound appears.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
It
think
might
we're
be
done
some
with the
s-
demonstration.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that if you hear that sound, it's because someone's keyed up the radio while someone's talking. It could be that someone's trying to say break without waiting for the over. So when I hear that, I tend to leave a couple seconds at least before I would answer myself after I'm supposed to have the radio. Just in case, but the reason you want to hold back on saying break until that over comes is simply that you don't want to rely on somebody on the next listener hearing that much and doing that.
Yeah.
So, if you have like Alpha 1, Alpha 2 having a conversation, just
Yeah.
casually, and then, for example, Bravo 1 comes in with break.
Yep.
They're submitting their message, whatever, tank over there, I don't know. And then some other squad has another break. What happens then? I mean, Bravo 1 has a really urgent message, but the next break has a urgent message too.
The second message should just wait, because the break message should be very short.
Yeah. When you
Okay.
say break, you'll have a very short message to give, and more importantly, if you also have something you want to say, let's say you are Charlie, chances are that the message Bravo is wanting to send is the same one you want to send.
Oh, well, that's true.
That's my list for protocol words. Anything more to add, Mahuja?
I'm thinking short recap. Basically, first comes the call, let's say Dolph is Alpha and I'm Hitman. Alpha Hitman, message over. And in that, I'm saying his name, I'm saying my name, and I'm saying what type of conversation I want to have. Message basically means there's something more going on. I could say sitrep if all I want is the situation report. I could say orders. We usually don't do that instead of message, but that would tell him what the conversation is going to be about.
People hear me?
Clean up this
Or-
mess.
And if it's really short and you're the superior, you usually don't initiate with message. We say Alpha 1, move out to waypoint 2, over. That's cutting down on the communication time a lot.
Yeah, for now I want us to try using the full lines.
Yep.
And then rather scale back on it as we get more comfortable with it.
Right, and I would answer Alpha 1, this is Alpha 2, send your message over.
Well, except you'd be sending to Hitman.
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure who called.
At which point I can start giving my message over.
Roger. Over.
And also further details that you may want to know. Over.
Would you like fries with that?
Yeah.
Affirmative. Over.
Hitman out.
Please move to the next window.
It's basically cutting the bollocks out, for a better way of saying it. Because you can quite readily talk on the radio for 5 minutes on what you need to be doing and talking about, but it's just really unnecessary.
New title for the training is going to be radio castration.
Getting rid of the bollocks.
And it all links together. A good planning of a mission, good waypoints, good initial setup, commanders who act on their own initiative. That's all gonna cut down with the comms.
Yeah. Good pre-planning can only give a setup in which communications can be easy afterwards. But as in, if you give very detailed plans and the kind of plans where once something happens you didn't account for, the whole plan is wasted. At that point, you'll need to do a lot of communication to, should I say, build things up again. Simple plans means simple comms.
Exactly, and the intent is always useful. What I want to do. Let's say I was Lervig in last Sunday's mission and I want to push through. So everybody would know that after the push through we have to go to high ground, we have to look at the enemies and then attack them from the rear. Even if we would have been scattered and alive, we would know what to do. So commanders then could move to their own little hill and attack from their own position, even if Lervig was down. So that's the idea behind the intent, and it also cuts down on communications and mission replanning.
If I have often tried to change to do the way I command, as in, I don't tell you what I want you to do, I tell you one step up why I want you to do that. As in, I don't want you to move to that next wall, I want you to move forward so that you can cover Bravo moving forward.
Yeah, because to the next wall, if you are coming to the next wall, might not be so good after all. But then you can decide, I need to cover Bravo, I need to move 50 meters to the right, then I can do that. Without further calling, that wall isn't good enough, Hitman. Can you allow me to move 50 more meters? So that's the thing.
Or even worse, there is a worse scenario there. They move to that wall, they can't do much from there, and they stay there.
Yeah, and Bravo gets slaughtered. Poor Bravo. Yeah, that's the mixture of communications and team leading and all that stuff. And it all works hand in hand. Even on in squad or in section level between Alpha 1 and Alpha 2. If that's really comms free, or the comms are reduced between Alpha 1 and Alpha 2 on short range, then it leaves way more listening time for the lead elements on the long range. It's not to say you should not report any enemies with the proper procedure, like freeze on the radio and stuff, but you also noticed freeze is a very short command, and it should be the only one that's issued by a team member, a squad member on the short range. The short range is usually only used if you're perhaps scattered, or initially for the fire team lead and the sexy sergeant.
Communicating with each other or to the whole team?
Section sergeant, as a reminder, has also a long range. He may tune it down volume-wise and have their ear a little bit more towards their man they're commanding, but it's usually good to know what's the big picture is. If team lead or section lead goes down, section sergeant has to come in.
Or even without that, like if on the radio it's posted that Bravo is moving up on Alpha's right, then Alpha 2 lead is very much going to want to know that the movement on his flank there is actually friendlies.
Yep.
One more thing I thought I'd cover, and this is basically the last thing I had on the plan, is the part where the leaders, the section leader and sergeant, should be reporting things up without having to be asked for it. For example, if you have a man down, and especially when that makes you mobile and such, report it in, because that's quite important information. Anytime that the image that your leader has does not match the reality on the ground where you have, you will need to report in what the actual picture is, such that he can make the right decisions. And that's really it.
And a little more thing, at the beginning of the mission there's usually a comms check, because Icarus can act up like in real life radios can do. So usually we do a comms check in order. So the procedure would be all elements, this is Hitman, radio check in order, over, and then Alpha would say Hitman Alpha, video loud and clear, out. Then Bravo would answer, oh, Hitman, this is Bravo, lead you loud and clear, out. And so on and so on. So then Hitman knows he's not talking into statics on the, but you are receiving. All his elements are there.
And it's faster than having to, in the case that everyone has the radio working correctly, it's far faster than if Hitman has to call each one separately.
Yep. Comms checks can also be done during the mission if you're not sure if you're in radio contact with a friendly unit. That may be on some larger maps. I think it's impossible with long range on Kunduz, but on Altis it could be. Because Acre, which I will know a little bit more about it, will actually recognize terrain features and calculate a rough path your communications or the radio waves will travel, and if you have terrain between you and the other element, you may not be able to receive it, and you may want to confirm that with a comms check.
So if the call goes Alpha Hitman comms check over, there is no message following it, it's just Hitman wanting to make sure that Alpha is indeed within comms range?
Or alive, for that matter.
Yeah.
Will you say something about how long you wait? Because if like Bravo 1 isn't there and we got the Charlie.
Yeah, it's this has a timeout of about perhaps 10 seconds or so, or 15. That's not really defined.
It's quite based on feel, really. It's not like you bring up the watch and look at the seconds tick by.
I just that everyone knows that if you can't hear someone, you should answer eventually, so we don't lose the chain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also, there could be then cases where another element is in contact with alpha. Hitman is calling, and Bravo is in contact with alpha, but Hitman cannot reach them. There could be relay situations, but that's advanced stuff. And yeah. The keywords on comms check and on quality of transmission are loud and clear. That's two measurements of communication quality. Loud is, yeah, the loudness, how loud you
Basically,
receive them.
if they aren't loud, they need to get closer to their microphone or something.
Yep. And clear is the transmission quality. If it's quite static, it's not too clear. There's also a method to use ratings from 0 to 5. I mean, 0 wouldn't make sense. You wouldn't be able to communicate with them. But from 1 to 5, it's also called Alpha versus Bravo. We do 5 by 5. That's 5 on the loudness scale and 5 on the clear scale. Everything would be good. But if it's 5 by 3, then there would be some static. It's not too clear, but understandable or something like that. But that's mostly used in real life and longer comms.
Yeah, if you get 5 by 3, speak slowly.
Yep. Yeah, that was my...
Yeah, any
Yeah.
questions? This is probably going to be the last chance to to ask questions. I'm thinking that we'll be reloading the mission, selecting more proper slots, and doing more, and then making some sort of mini mission.
Just a little comment.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit before the mission started. Just like think about what you want to say before you start talking, because then you minimize the time you are on the radio. You don't get the things.
Yeah, it's sometimes hard because we're not usually all native English speakers, and we have to translate a little bit in our heads. So that makes for sometimes the moments. But yeah, if you can prepare and you have time to prepare the statement you're gonna say in your head, then do it before transmitting. Good idea.
At the very least, if you don't have the words ready, try to keep the concept of what you're trying to say clear.